Have you ever been shocked when a woman ended a relationship without warning? One day she seemed calm, patient, and fully committed. Then, almost overnight, she walked away and never looked back. To everyone around her, it felt sudden. But if that woman was a Sigma female, chances are the decision wasn't sudden at all. Long before she packed her bags, stopped replying, or quietly closed the door on the relationship, she had already been paying attention to dozens of small moments that everyone else overlooked. She noticed the broken promises, the conversations that never changed anything, the repeated disrespect disguised as mistakes, the growing emotional distance. While others assumed everything was fine because she wasn't arguing, she was silently deciding whether the relationship still deserved her energy. This is one of the most misunderstood things about Sigma females. They don't usually leave after one bad day. They leave after giving countless chances that no one else even realizes they gave. By the time they finally walk away, they aren't making an emotional decision. They're accepting a conclusion they've reached after weeks, months, or sometimes even years of careful observation. Today, we'll explore 10 reasons why Sigma females often end relationships so suddenly, and why what looks like an impulsive decision is usually the result of a long psychological journey. Let's begin. 1. She leaves emotionally before she leaves physically. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that a relationship ends the moment someone walks away. For the Sigma female, it usually ends much earlier. She begins noticing that the connection no longer feels the same. Maybe conversations become shorter. Maybe respect slowly fades. Maybe promises are repeated without ever turning into action. At first, she doesn't panic. Instead, she watches. She asks herself whether this is simply a difficult season or the beginning of a permanent pattern. Because she values commitment, she doesn't rush toward the exit. She continues trying, she communicates, she gives the other person opportunities to notice the problem. But every unanswered conversation slowly changes something inside her. Each disappointment makes her a little less emotionally invested. Without realizing it, her heart begins preparing for the possibility that the relationship may not survive. By the time she physically leaves, she has already spent weeks processing the loss internally. That's why her decision often appears so calm. The grieving happened long before anyone else realized the relationship was ending. 2. She notices patterns, not excuses. Most people can forgive a single mistake. The Sigma female can too. She understands that everyone has bad days, people become stressed, misunderstandings happen, nobody is perfect. What concerns her isn't one mistake. It's repetition. If someone apologizes but never changes, she notices. If promises continue being broken, she remembers. If respect only appears after conflict, she pays attention. Rather than judging isolated moments, she studies patterns. Because patterns reveal character. Many people become trapped by hopeful thinking. They focus on what someone says they'll become someday. The Sigma female quietly evaluates who they consistently are today. She understands that lasting relationships aren't built on potential. They're built on repeated actions. When those actions continue pointing in the wrong direction, she eventually accepts what reality is showing her. 3. She stops feeling emotionally safe. Every healthy relationship needs one thing above almost everything else: emotional safety. The Sigma female wants to know she can express her thoughts without being mocked, share her feelings without being dismissed, disagree without fearing punishment or manipulation. When that emotional safety begins disappearing, something important changes. She starts speaking less. She shares fewer personal thoughts. She becomes more guarded. Some partners mistakenly interpret this as emotional distance. In reality, it's emotional protection. She isn't becoming cold, she's becoming careful. She has learned that opening your heart to someone who repeatedly misunderstands, criticizes, or ignores it eventually becomes exhausting. Instead of continuing to expose her vulnerability, she slowly begins protecting it. Once emotional safety disappears for too long, rebuilding trust becomes incredibly difficult. 4. She realizes she's carrying the entire relationship. Healthy relationships require two people choosing each other every day. Unfortunately, not every relationship remains balanced. Sometimes one person becomes responsible for everything: starting conversations, planning time together, solving disagreements, keeping communication alive. The Sigma female doesn't mind putting in effort. What she minds is feeling like she's the only one doing it. At first, she tells herself the other person is simply busy. Then she gives them more time, then another chance, and another. Eventually, she notices something uncomfortable. If she stops making the effort, the relationship almost stops moving. That's the moment she realizes she has been carrying far more than her share. Instead of becoming louder, she often becomes quieter. She wants to see whether the other person notices the distance, whether they make an effort on their own. Sometimes they do, but when they don't, she quietly accepts a painful truth. A relationship cannot survive when only one person keeps choosing it. 5. She reaches a point where words mean nothing. Perhaps the most dangerous stage in any relationship is when apologies stop creating hope. The Sigma female believes people deserve opportunities to grow. She listens, she forgives, she tries to understand. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. Over time, repeated apologies without meaningful change begin losing their impact. I'll do better. It won't happen again. I promise. At first, those words matter, but when they become part of the same repeating cycle, they slowly lose their meaning. Eventually, the Sigma female stops listening to promises. She starts watching behavior instead. If actions continue telling a different story than words, her decision becomes clearer with every passing week. By the time she finally leaves, it isn't because of one final argument. It's because she no longer believes tomorrow will be different from yesterday. And once hope disappears, the relationship often follows. For the Sigma female, actions will always speak louder than the most beautiful promises. 6. She chooses peace over constant conflict. One of the biggest misconceptions about Sigma females is that they leave because they can't handle conflict. The truth is often the opposite. They stay through more conflict than most people realize. They try to understand. They try to communicate. They give the relationship every opportunity to improve. But eventually, they recognize the difference between temporary challenges and permanent dysfunction. If every conversation turns into an argument, if every disagreement ends with blame instead of solutions, if every week feels emotionally exhausting, she begins asking herself a difficult question. Is this relationship bringing me peace, or is it slowly taking it away? Once the answer becomes clear, her decision becomes much easier. She doesn't want a relationship where she constantly has to defend herself, explain herself, or fight to be understood. She wants stability. She wants respect. She wants a partner who solves problems with her instead of creating new ones. When that becomes impossible, walking away no longer feels like giving up. It feels like protecting herself. 7. She stops explaining the same things. Most Sigma females are patient communicators. When something bothers them, they usually don't disappear immediately. They talk about it. They explain how they feel. They give examples. They try to find solutions together. But there comes a point where repeating the same conversation becomes emotionally draining. If she has already explained her boundaries several times, if she has already shared what hurts her, if nothing changes, she eventually stops talking about it. Many people make a critical mistake at this stage. They assume her silence means everything is fine. In reality, her silence often means she's stopped believing her words will make a difference. She's no longer trying to convince someone to care. She's quietly deciding whether it's time to leave. By the time her partner realizes she's serious, she's often already emotionally prepared to move on. 8. She refuses to lose herself. The Sigma female values love deeply, but she values her identity just as much. She refuses to become someone she's not simply to keep a relationship alive. She won't constantly shrink her dreams. She won't ignore her values. She won't abandon the life she's worked so hard to build just to make someone else comfortable. If she begins feeling like she's sacrificing more and more of herself while receiving less and less in return, she knows something is wrong. She understands that healthy relationships help both people grow. They don't require one person to slowly disappear. So when staying means losing herself, the choice becomes surprisingly clear. She chooses herself. Not because she's selfish, but because she knows no healthy relationship should require someone to give up who they are. 9. She doesn't fear being alone. One reason Sigma females can leave relationships that others remain trapped in is that they aren't controlled by the fear of being single. Of course, ending a relationship hurts. She feels a loss. She misses the memories. She questions whether things could have been different. But she also knows something many people forget. Being in the wrong relationship can feel far lonelier than being alone. She's already learned how to enjoy her own company. She has her own interests, goals, and routines. That independence gives her the courage to leave situations that no longer align with her values. She doesn't leave because she enjoys solitude more than love. She leaves because she believes peace is better than pretending to be happy. 10. When she leaves, her decision is usually final. Perhaps the most surprising thing about Sigma females is how rarely they return once they've made the decision to leave. This isn't because they never cared, it's because they spent so much time trying before they finally walked away. Most people only see the ending. They don't see the months of internal conflict, the conversations she replayed in her mind, the chances she quietly gave, the hope she held onto long after most people would have left. By the time she says goodbye, she has usually accepted that the relationship can no longer become what she hoped it would be. That's why she rarely looks back. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but because reopening a chapter she's already healed from would only reopen old wounds. For the Sigma female, leaving isn't an impulsive reaction. It's the final step in a decision she has been making for a long time. Conclusion. People often describe Sigma females as unpredictable because their departures seem sudden. But what looks sudden is usually the result of months or even years of silent observation, patience, and emotional reflection. They don't leave after one argument. They don't leave after one mistake. They leave when they realize the same problems continue repeating without real change. A Sigma female doesn't expect perfection. She expects honesty, respect, consistency, and mutual effort. When those qualities disappear, she doesn't spend forever trying to force the relationship to work. She accepts the truth, even when it's painful. That's why her decision often seems so final. She isn't running away from love. She's walking away from a relationship that no longer reflects the love she believes both people deserve. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson of all. Sometimes the strongest act of love isn't holding on. Sometimes it's having the courage to let go and make room for something healthier. If this video resonated with you, tell us in the comments. Do you think Sigma females leave too quickly, or do they simply stay too long before finally walking away? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content on Sigma female psychology, relationships, and personal growth. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.